Hello, this is Barry Nirmal. Please subscribe to my channel by clicking on the subscribe link below. Hello friends, in this video I will tell you the story of the Second World War, how Germany attacked the Soviet Union and lost. This story is relevant today because right now Ukraine and Russia are fighting. Russia attacked Ukraine on the rationale that Ukraine was trying to join NATO. Many countries that belonged to Soviet Union earlier, like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they have joined NATO, and NATO is trying to get more countries to join it, like Sweden, Finland, and Ukraine. And so Russia wants to stop this expansion of NATO. They are arguing that USA would not like if Russia placed nuclear missiles on its border, like in Mexico or in Canada. The West, led by USA, is arguing that Ukraine is a sovereign country, it's separated from the Soviet Union, and Russia has no right to dictate whether or not it joins NATO. So they're fighting. In the Second World War, Hitler started attacking neighboring countries starting 1938. In 1934, he became absolute dictator, and he wanted to basically make Germany great and glorious. So he attacked Austria and took it over. He attacked Czechoslovakia and took it over. But then he attacked Poland, which the Allies did not like. And this did not stop Hitler. Hitler then attacked France and took it over quickly. Then he attacked Britain on the air. And in this air war, which lasted about 6 months, Germany could not vanquish Great Britain. Great Britain survived and won this war. But then Hitler thought that he will try to attack Russia and took it over. Russia was a huge country, and he thought that he could quickly conquer Russia. But Russia was far greater geographically and militarily, greater than Germany. But Hitler was drunk on power. He had become so overconfident that he could vanquish any country. He could invade any country and took it over. Then he attacks the Soviet Union in 1941, June 1941, and then this war lasted about 4 years. Finally, in April 1945, the Soviet troops reached Berlin, and then Hitler had to commit suicide because he was afraid that if the Soviets captured him, he would be basically insulted like his friend Mussolini. Mussolini was killed, and his corpse was hung in a square in Milan. So Hitler committed suicide. So this story of World War II has great lessons for us. So please enjoy this video. Thank you. World War II, German invasion of Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa. The German invasion of the Soviet Union was known as Operation Barbarossa. It began on June 22, 1941, with general goals being to gain more land for Germany, control the oil fields of Azerbaijan, and exterminate Bolshevism. Hitler wanted to exterminate the so-called racially inferior Russian people from Western USSR, despite the fact that the USSR was far larger than Germany, both geographically and militarily. Hitler believed that the country would collapse quickly after a brief show of German force. Because he had been able to conquer so many countries quickly during 1938 to 1941, he had become foolishly overconfident. Finally, he had to commit suicide. and his country was reduced to ruins, and his people suffered from death and deprivation for decades. The Russian response was determined and ferocious. Despite initial setbacks, the USSR put up a formidable fight. Unlike most of the enemy forces that the Germans had encountered in Western Europe, the Soviet troops tended either to retreat or fight to the last man, not surrender. Within days of the invasion, the Soviets organized small partisan groups and so-called destruction battalions and sent them behind enemy lines to disrupt German efforts in numerous ways. Moscow in 1941. As the Germans approached Moscow, they encountered row after row after row of trenches and ditches reinforced by barbed wire. Since late October, thousands of Russian civilians had dug more than 5,000 miles of trenches by hand all the way around the city. On November 27, 1941, these trenches finally brought the German advance on Moscow to a halt, less than 20 miles from the Kremlin. Overwhelmed by a strong Russian defense, frigid temperatures, and constant harassment by Russian partisans behind the lines, the Germans became mired. In just 3 weeks, they lost 85,000 men, the same number that they had lost over the entire Barbarossa campaign up to that point. During the first week of December 1941, the Germans slowly began losing ground. The Soviets managed to push them back for several miles. Although the Germans still did not retreat, on December 8, 1941, a directive issued from Hitler himself instructed all German troops in Russia to shift from offensive operations to defensive. Basically, that was an acknowledgement of defeat. Devastation in the USSR. The scope of the devastation that occurred in the Soviet Union during World War II is poorly appreciated in the West and indeed hard even to fathom. Germany carried out the invasion with a brutality rarely seen in human history. 20 million people died in Russia at the hands of the invaders, a total that includes soldiers fighting on the front, Jews who were singled out and murdered in Russian towns, local government officials, and millions of ordinary Russian citizens who were killed with the same calculating methodology. One of Hitler's specific goals for the invasion was to substantially reduce the overall population of the Western Soviet Union, to make more room for the Germans whom he intended to move there. The scale of the killing was so great that even some members of the German death squads became sickened by the grotesqueness of their orders. Battle of Stalingrad. The Battle of Stalingrad was a brutal military campaign between Russian forces and those of Nazi Germany and the Axis powers during World War II. The battle is infamous as one of the largest, longest, and bloodiest engagements in modern warfare. From August 1942 through February 1943, more than 2 million troops fought in close quarters, and nearly 2 million people were killed or injured in the fighting, including tens of thousands of Russian civilians. But the Battle of Stalingrad being one of Russia's important industrial cities, ultimately turned the tide of World War II in favor of the Allied forces. On 2 February 1943, the German Sixth Army, led by Field Marshal Paulus, having exhausted their ammunition and food, finally capitulated, making it the first of Hitler's field armies to surrender during World War II after 5 months, 1 week, and 3 days of fighting. Here you can see a photo of Soviet soldiers running through the ruins of Stalingrad in 1942. Field Marshal Paulus in captivity. This is a colorized photo of General Field Marshal Paulus after surrender at Stalingrad, February 2, 1943. The siege of Leningrad, it was a prolonged military blockade undertaken from the south by Nazi Germany against the Soviet city of Leningrad, which is now called St. Petersburg. The Finnish army invaded from the north, cooperating with the Germans, and completed the ring around the city. The siege began on 8 September 1941, when the German army severed the last road to the city. The Red Army did not lift the siege until 27 January 1944, which is 872 days after it began. The blockade became one of the longest and most destructive sieges in history, and it was possibly the costliest siege in history due to the number of casualties which were suffered throughout its duration. In the 21st century, some historians have classified it as a genocide due to the systematic starvation and intentional destruction of the city's civilian population. In July-August 1943, there was tank war at Kursk between the Germans and Soviets. Kursk, by the way, is in Russia. Germany was defeated. After this, Germans were unable to launch any new major offensive. From now on, the Soviet soldiers kept on pushing the Germans westward, slowly but surely. Finally, they reached Berlin in early 1945. The Soviet army ultimately captured Berlin. On 15 April 1945, the Soviet Union fired a massive barrage of some 1 million artillery shells, one of the largest in history, onto the German positions west of the Oder. On 30 April, Hitler committed suicide, with several of his officials also dying by suicide shortly afterwards. Hello, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so by clicking on the subscribe link below. Also write your comments in the comment section below. Spread the word. You can share this video with your friends by clicking on the share button below, and you can share it with WhatsApp, with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and by sending email to your friends.